There are so many people out there who are far better than you. One of my mentors said, as CEO, it's your job to become the dumbest person in the room. And that's basically a really good mantra. Double down on one thing and make it work. Then add the next one. That's how people that got successful did it. And that's exactly one of the things that we did wrong, but we corrected it. I'm a big believer of like the idea is just 5%, right? 95% is... That's one of my favorite things to do is like packing my backpack, going into the woods, right? Spend a couple of days there with a friend, just hiking, sleeping in a tent, putting up a fire, stuff like that. That's something I really enjoy. So that's the best vacation for me on earth. I would switch it for every 5-star hotel in a second.
Right. Yeah. And so you really value completely unplugging then?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like no internet, no phone?
Absolutely, yeah. Like I have 4 little girls, right? And so it's 6 people in our family, and there's always like tons of things that are happening, like day in, day out, like next to the business. So that's something I really enjoy. And I think it's important because everybody needs like a little bit of space, right? And if you have to be present all the time because you have like a high standard you set for yourself, right? On the other hand, you have to find something which is the counterpart of it, right? Handling lots of people, engaging people, right? Trying to interact, trying to motivate, getting the best out of everyone, right? Then maybe the counterpart, the other side of the coin, right? Yeah. It's the complete opposite, right? So just basically 3 things to do, which is fire, water, shelter. And that's basically it. So that's the usual day, and I enjoy that as well.
So as someone who's running a company, how do you, there must be people who need you all of the time. Yeah. How do you take that sort of vacation where you're unreachable?
That's basically probably one of the biggest wins during the last years. So I imagine like from 2009 to 2016, it wasn't possible. No chance, right? I was working in the company. I had multiple roles. No chance doing this. Going a week on vacation or 2 weeks even felt like an unachievable task. But after I switched a lot of things and were working more like on the business and not in the business, right? And I had great people in place who actually covered all those roles that are necessary. I actually implemented something which is that I don't work in August, for example. And I take like 3 weeks at least, sometimes 3.5 weeks, like off with the family, and we go camping and spend like some time together. And I just I shut down my phone. I open it up in the morning, see whether I got a short message, right? And some people know how to reach me. And if it's urgent, they write me, and then I call back. If it's nothing, then I just shut my phone off into flight mode, and that's it for a day.
Wow!
And that was one of the biggest achievements, because actually, in the beginning, it's like you feel like the most important person in this business because you are the one most knowledgeable, you know all the areas, you are the best in, I don't know, marketing, product, sales, whatever it is, right? You feel like you have to teach and explain everything to everyone. And then there's some time when you realize you're actually not the best one. You think you have more knowledge in this area, but there are so many people out there who are far better than you, right? And if they focus on all their specialities, right, and you leverage this, right, that's how you build a company. And so that's something like one of my mentors said, as CEO, it's your job to become the dumbest person in the room. And that's basically a really good mantra.
How did you know when you had made it to that point? How did you know that you had hired the people finally who were smarter than you?
Yeah,
and that you could trust
Go on
them?
vacation for 1 month and see what happens.
A month?
Maybe start with 1 week and see what happens. And I don't mean the goal is not to work. At least for me, it's not, because I really enjoy that, right? I love putting up the goals, like getting excited about like something which wasn't achievable before, but now felt like something that might actually happen, right? And find a way, solve all those difficult problems. That's something I just jump into it, right? I love the white blank piece of paper where you can build up new strategies, design new products, right? I love the starting things from scratch thing. And on the other hand, you sometimes have to really look out that you don't start too many things, right? If you are more, in terms of characters, if you're more like a maverick, for example, they tend to start like multiple new things because they enjoy the early moment, right? They enjoy starting stuff. And by doing this, you are actually the one harming the company the most, right? There's something, I think it's that's a quote from Hiten Shah. He's a founder of a software company. And he said after he sold his company, he reflected on the journey and everything and what he could do better. And he wrote an article, I think it was called The Hiten Bomb. And that's what the phrase the people inside of his company actually used when he was coming up with something new, a new direction, a new product, something new. And oh my God, that's another Heaton bomb, right? That's what he said. And that's like, there was the David bomb as well, right? In the early days. And I just new strategy, new campaign, new idea, new product iteration. And by doing that, you confuse everyone, right? And I think the best thing is when you know exactly where to go and you have the people on board where the roles are really clear, right? Where all the everything is set up properly so the goals are aligned and that you don't have to do something which is based to the day in and day out business. There's tons of stuff to do all the time, right? But you don't have to do the daily business. And by doing this, you actually like work on the business and not in the business. And this enables you to go on vacation as well, which is necessary because if everybody is working in the business, someone has to look at the business as its whole, right? Look where it's going, how the future customers look like, right? Whether there's enough liquidity, for example, whether the culture is a great fit, whether the org chart, the people are, whether you created like the best place for all the people in the company where they can be at their natural best, whether you have to bring somebody in, right, or replace somebody, that's something you can only really see if you look from the outside of this company. And that's something that's basically not happen if you have your first teammate, for example, or if you are 3 or 4 people in a company. But there will be a stage when you have enough people covering all the day in, day out operations, and you can step back one step, right? And by doing this, I think you will become the far better CEO. And that was the transition for me between maybe 2017 to 2020, something like that. Yeah, so it's a couple of years ago. And that's exactly the moment when I was able to do the vacation, right? To get back to the original question. And I think that's a good test because if the business needs you, you are still working in your business, which is not a bad thing if you enjoy it. But if you want to scale the business, right? And build an asset which works without yourself as well, that's like where I differentiate between like somebody who's self-employed, right? And someone who's building a business, which usually is called an entrepreneur, which is not better or worse. I think it's just different perspectives, right? But that's the job of the entrepreneur, the CEO who's building the business in that job. And the other thing is like if you enjoy the service you're providing, if you enjoy what you're doing, if you have special skills in terms of camera or whatever it is, right, then really narrow down, get the best in this one and charge the highest rate possible, right, for this one. So because you have special expertise, but then that's not something you would hand over to somebody else, right? And on the other hand, another thing people tend to do is if they go on this track where you try to be most efficient and try to delegate everything and replace yourself for everything, sometimes you end up with nothing that is left to enjoy anymore in this job. And that's another thing I would not recommend doing, right? Because everybody loves to do some certain things and some things you have to keep, even if it would make sense to hand them over to like keep your inner peace, keep your joy, because you want to see the impact for yourself as well, right?
Okay, so I had so many thoughts of where to go. So you said that you had David bombs, right? What was yes. What was one of the David bombs, and who did you have around you telling, like, kind of reining that in and keeping the bombs from going off?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think there were multiple David bombs. So if I compare it to the Heaton bombs, so for example, every time I thought we have to build a second product, for example, right? And there was a time, so we're building a social media management software, right? So we help big companies to manage all their social media, get successful on social, reply to all their customers. And in addition to that, for example, in the Corona times, we were building a second product, which was a video conferencing software for government, right? Which is one segment of our customers. So there was a fit between the customer base and it was a value add. But on the other hand, I don't know, at that time we were maybe 30 people, 40 people, something like that. I don't say it's not possible, but I think it it's a big distraction, even for a company which might feel huge to some people, right? Even 100 people is not a huge company. But from the perspective where you hire your first teammates, for example, it seems huge, right? $1 million seems you can build everything with $1 million, which you can't probably. But so that's how it felt like. And like by building another product, like you split the focus and the capacity of your whole company apart, right? And everything becomes slow. And at the beginning, there is so many things that are unknown, and it takes so much capacity out of and speed out of the company. So I think if there is no real reason for like a second product, like a value add, and you need to grow via existing customers, and that's like part of your strategy. For me, it was always a bad idea when I thought of this, right? There will be a stage when this is different, because becoming a multi-product company is a good thing as well. Sometimes having multiple businesses make sense as well, but usually in 80% at least of the times, it is a really bad idea, because it sets narrow down your focus and everything will become easier. And if you like divide the focus, like it's gonna be a mess. At least that's my experience. Double down on one thing and make it work, then add the next one, right? That's how people that got successful did it. And that's exactly one of the things that we did wrong, but we corrected it, right? So after winning the first customers, I realized this one, and it almost got profitable, right, as well. But we just cut like, I don't know, 100,000 a year of recurring revenue, something like that, because it didn't make sense. It was a distraction.
As a founder, as someone who starts companies, you are an idea person. You like to build. You like, that's your drive, right? How do you, as you transition into a CEO or someone who's just running the company, how do you resist that? You must have ideas every day. And so how do you know when to chase them and when to stay focused?
Yeah. So I think that's like a complex question as well. So multiple answers to this one. I think, first of all, I would consider myself as the founder of the company. So basically the company is my baby, right? That's how I feel about it, right? There are people who think differently. That's just how I feel, right? And this means that the biggest obstacle is my job. Right? So the biggest obstacle to overcome is my job, no matter what. I don't care whether this is in support or it's a product or sales, or if I have to internationalize, or if I get funding, whatever it is, right? Whatever the company needs is like the biggest obstacle, and whatever the company needs on this one, that's my issue, right? My problem, my obstacle to work on. In the beginning, sure, the idea is something huge, but I'm a big believer of like the idea is just 5%, right? 95% is execution. So you can have the best idea and you can have NDAs for this idea for everyone in the whole world and never talk about it publicly, right? Usually this limits the feedback, and the most important thing about ideas is getting feedback, getting sparring, getting feedback from your target customers, from the people you want to provide value to, right? Because money is just an exchange for value. And you never realize if you have something of value if you don't talk about it, right? So that's a big mistake a lot of people do in the beginning. There are some exceptions of this, but usually that's a big mistake. And I think the execution is 95%, because you have to. It's not about doing more, right? Of course, if you put in more hours, you usually get more results in the beginning, right? You have to outwork everybody, but then you have to like step back as well and create a system that grows the company, because you cannot do it, right? If I work like 150 hours a week, it doesn't make that big difference, right? But if I leverage this with like 80 people in the company or something that we have at the moment, that's like the leverage makes a difference, right? Capital is something to leverage. People is something to leverage, right? Software is something to leverage, right? There's this big pyramid of all the things. Media, right, is another step of leveraging stuff. And if you use 1 or 2 or 3 or even 4 of those, right, you create something that can actually be a huge asset in the beginning, in the end. Did I answer your question, or is something left? Yeah. So please hit me up.
Yeah. What was some of the most valuable early feedback that you got from customers?
The most valuable? I think the most valuable is always the truth, which you tend not to get all the time, right? Because most of the people are conflict averse. They don't want to criticize. They don't want to tell you this is shit, right? This is something I hate it, right? That's something you probably won't hear. So I think the most important thing is to listen how they say it, right? And ask really specific questions, which you ask not their opinion, but they are based around the value of this, right? If you would imagine having this tomorrow, right? How much value would it be for you? Would you use it, right? Would you use it in the future? Would it solve your biggest pain, or is there something else, right? Compare this to another tool, another thing you use in your business, right? Is it more or less valuable than this one, right? Would you rather hire another employee or have this tool ready, right? If you compare the amount of money, that's something you need, this kind of comparison to actually get a feeling around how much value you are creating with this one, and ask a lot of open questions and just let them talk. And in the end, like, make sense of all of the post-its that you get and the feedback that you get. And that's like how you can like get a better sense of what value for the other side, for the customer is. And that's basically the way to go.
I'm curious how you get people to be honest with you, or how you get, I'm curious about how you get genuine answers to those questions. And I ask that as someone who I am personally very guarded against being sold to. So when I know someone wants to sell me something, I'm very protective of my answers and try to keep my leverage and not let something sound too valuable to me. So how do you get genuine,
how would you feel like?
there?
How would you feel like if I pitch you my product and say, "Is this something you want to buy?"
I would hedge.
You would hedge.
Even if I wanted to buy it, if I'm not sure I can afford it, if I'm not sure,
the shields go up instantly, right?
Yeah.
What if I would ask you, "Hey, I have this idea and we are working on this one, and I just need people to talk to, and I need for help, and I saw you are an expert on this one. Can you please like spend 30 minutes talking to me, get me some help on this one, because I don't know what to do," right? How would you feel then?
Much more open, but because you've been vulnerable. You've been vulnerable and said in that version, you've said, "I don't know what to do here. I need your help."
Yeah.
Is that something that you think business owners are hesitant to do?
I think there's a way in the middle as well. So what we didn't do is we didn't say we don't know what to do, right? But we said we wanted to provide value to social media managers. That's why we contacted hundreds of them, right? So that was like the first half year we were just talking to people, and we never stopped, right? That's an ongoing thing. And we talked to all the people from Audi to Zalando, right? 100 companies. And we picked up the one social media manager that we know, right? We called him and said, "Hey, we want to build a great software that makes your day easier, right? Your life easier as a social media manager. And we would love to invest all our time and our money to create a solution for you, right? And we would love to have a conversation with you about how you spend your day, what you are doing, what are your biggest problems, right? If you would have a magic wand, what would you wish for having that would make conversations on social media easier, help you create better content, whatever it is, right? So if you feel like this person is really committed to help you become successful, to succeed, why not talk to them? Why not share all the stuff? They're just making your life easier, right? And I think there is like a combination of being a little bit vulnerable, because you have to actually believe that you don't know the answers yet, right? If you're going pre-biased into this, you will learn nothing, right? So try to be really open to what they think is value, right? And how it looks like and which color it has and whether it's round or square or whatever it is. And on the other hand, ask these questions and get into different directions and compare it so that you actually know how valuable this one is and feels like, because you're not talking euros yet. Afterwards, yours is the best check to see, we created this feature, right? Are you willing to pay us 500 euros a month for this? No? Okay, why not? How would it have to look like in order to be of value of 500 euros to you? Just imagine you have the budget for this. Would you spend it, or would you spend it on another person, a different software tool? Why? Right? That's how you learn. You have to compare it, and euro is a great comparison. Or dollar, right, to figure out how much of a value it is actually. I think the three steps in every business, at least in software as a service businesses. And the first one is getting from the idea to market feedback as fast as possible, right? This is called getting to product market fit, right? That's the first step. If you're here and you start with 0, you're losing money all the time, right? Getting to product market fit until you have something of value, not you think is valuable, but your target customer is thinking that and is proving you via their money that it's of value, right? Then you have something that is really worth pursuing and putting in all your time and effort. And then if you have product market fit, people are attracted to you because they need your solution and they pay you money in order to get the value and make their life easier in business or whatever you sell to. And then there's the next stage. If you have reached product market fit, then it's about scaling, right? Because then you know that you have something of value. And now the question is, how do you actually bring it to the market? How do you create better marketing, better sales, whatever your growth engine looks like? And that's the point where I switched to working on the growth engine. It took me years, right? And to figure out the growth engine, we initially tried to sell it via online marketing, try online, buy online. Didn't work for us at that specific customers that we are targeting. And then after building 3 different sales teams, it actually worked, right? And then you are on the way to scale the company. So from 0 to product market fit, everything is about product, the customer, and like increasing shipping one thing of value that people actually pay you money for, because that's the comparison of this is of value. And then from product market fit to scaling, where you're looking more of people, processes, systems, build the growth engine in the company till you're at the next stage and the next problem comes up. That's just how it works.
So I think that you have an interesting point of view and background and experience to share in a couple of different points that I want to get into, working in the business versus on the business. And also you just referenced the 3 sales teams that you had to build. Which one do you feel like is more interesting and important to you to jump into and branch off and see where we end up?
So I think one of the big learnings I had in the beginning is that I thought I can actually choose which model to use to grow the business, right? So it's my choice. I can choose like online marketing, offline marketing, AdWords, right? SEO. I can choose to build a sales team or not, do field sales, do telephone sales, do inbound sales, whatever it is, right? And I think that's actually not true. You can decide for direction, of course, but I think the target customer and your offering, right, that kind of match actually defines the possibilities on go-to-market approaches that you are able to use to win them over, right? Because they are used to buy a certain way, and those ways actually define how you have to do it in order to fulfill their buying needs, right? So I always thought we can sell to retailers, for example, and we were talking about 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 euros a year, right, for licenses for the software. And they would just swipe in their credit card, try it online, don't talk to a person ever, right? Do a trial phase for 14 days, swipe in their credit card and buy the software. And as you already might know, this did not work for us, right? It may work today, right? So always have the context of this is like a couple of years in the past. But the user of the software and the people that did the buying decisions were not the same people, right? They are like the users of the software, then there are the team leads maybe, and maybe there are even other decision makers out there, the IT, the purchasing department, whatever it is. If you sell to big companies, like a retailer that has 10,000, 50,000 employees, for example, like it's a multi people buying process. And so knowing this, it just makes sense to have to build a sales team, which is not a salesy sales team, but is actually helping the buyer to fit this product and help the people that want to use the software through the buying process of the company so they actually can get the value of the software, right? Because they are on your side in the end. They want as much as they want to use the software. They already have decided, the users, but you have to help them, enable them to actually support you through the buying process of that company. And that's why we had to build a sales team. And that's what we had to understand at this price point, at this target customer, that the sales team was for us the only way to get through this. And when we realized this, we switched like all our budget, capacity, resources from this to sales in the end, build a sales team, and later we added the marketing to make sales more efficient, right? We built a magazine, a digital one, a print magazine as well for social media managers, which sounds crazy, but by this contrast, right, they're doing just online, we're doing offline as well, it stood out, right? Standing out in marketing, always a good idea. And so that's how we actually figured this out. But if I think of, this is just for our business, right? If you think of different businesses, this might be different. But the thing that I would love to empower people to think about is try to understand how others already do it, right? And don't try to reinvent the wheel early on. Copy what works and iterate from there, which makes sense. In terms of SaaS companies, there's a great model from Christoph Jans, which is called 5 Ways to Build a 100 Million Business. It's a cool chart. It's like, it has like a couple of animals there, the elephants, the deers, the mice, the rabbits. And on the other side, it tells you like the price point if the company is, the software is €1, 100 euros, 1,000 euros, whatever, a month, a year. And then you can see how many customers you actually have to win over in order to build this 1, 10, 100 million company, right? And by deciding which animal, which is the customer, right? If you're talking an elephant, this is a big corporation who pays you 100,000 euros a year. Or if you're hunting a mice, for example, which is just a small amount of money a year, right? You need a different process to bring your software to the customer. And by defining the customer you are actually hunting in this scenario, you already have the models that work for this target customer, because all the other models might not work on this one because it's too expensive. It's too many people, right? To make it work, people would have to close so many deals. So it has to be a try online, buy online thing. It has to be something more automated, right? And by looking at this, if you're hunting the elephants, so big money, less customers, it can be a really individual approach. If you're talking less money, tons of customers, thousands, 10,000, 100,000, a million customers, it has to be so much more automated. And by knowing this, you can actually black out all the stuff that is not a fit to this, and some things stay, and you have to try and iterate with them in order to find the ones that are working. And by using this framework, it becomes so much easier, because you're not running 2 years in this direction, 2 years in this direction, 2 years in this direction until to figure it out, and maybe have to try 1 or 2 things until you make it work. So I would look for one thing, talk to others how they do it, if they have the same buyer persona, or at least hunting the same size of customers with the same price point or a similar price point. And the other thing is looking at frameworks like this one, for example, in the SaaS industry, so you don't make all the mistakes yourself, because I think you have to iterate fast, make some failures, and learn from them. If you don't learn from them, no failure is actually good, right? Nobody can tell me that like making tons of failures is a good thing. Doing tons of failures, reflecting on them, learning from them, and doing different action, that actually makes sense, right? So don't try to make all the failures, just make enough so you have enough money left to actually like build your business, and that's the most important part. Yeah.
You mentioned that you had to build 3 sales teams before you had the right one. And I'm wondering if there's anything anyone could have said to you at the beginning that would have led you to build the right one from the beginning? Or did you need to go through that trial and error to get to the right spot?
The question is like, what's the goal? Is the goal to build the most valuable company in no time? Is that actually something we want to do? It feels like it, right? Because you want to get successful and get rich quick, right? That's the stuff on YouTube, get rich quick, right? Become a millionaire overnight. And I think that's actually a really bad goal, because if you get rich by accident, for example, by just copying something and you don't know why it works, but it works, and you win the lottery, for example, you have learned nothing, right? In terms of personal growth, personal development, getting the skill set, the experience, how to build a business so you could do it again, or teach people, right? Or fix something because you actually know all the components and how they should play together, because you have experienced how it feels if it's working well and everything is well aligned. that's something of value, and that's something I try to pursue. So I would say I'm really glad that we had to build 3 sales teams, because now I actually know when it feels right because of experience. And the next company I watch and talk to them and just look at it, I can see and feel whether this is working out or not, right? At least far better than 3 sales teams before. And if you don't make this experience, I think that's something we're just guessing, right? Into the blue. So this actually is something of value, I think. But if the goal is not to learn the most, which I think is the most valuable goal, at least for me, right? I'd rather get to the next step and learn more and become more in terms of knowledge and experience, and doing all the bad stuff as well, right? Because that's like from failures and reflecting on them, you learn. So that's actually a good thing. And if the goal wouldn't be that and not the development, but it would be like building the most valuable company in no time, then I would actually look for someone who had done this in the past. Maybe not the exact thing, but worked for somebody who has done it successfully, right? So they have a feeling, a sense about how it should look like, feel like, smell like, whatever it is, when it works. And they can transfer this feeling to your company, and they build the same system around it, and this will shorten the time to success like by a lot. So always look for people who have done it, or at least experienced it, not in the same position, maybe the next position. So they had a mentor to learn from, and now they want to prove themselves as well. And that's a good thing. But in sales, the problem is that there are so many different approaches, right? And if you're hunting the elephants or the mice, the sales approach is completely different. So you have to find someone who has done outbound sales, or who has done inbound sales, and who hunted 100,000 euros a year customers, or maybe 20,000 euros a year customers, because the systems that work and the amount of automation or individualization is different, and they try to just take the blueprint they became successful with and try it in your company as well. And if they implement the wrong one, you know what happens.
You said is the goal to get rich quick, and that's what you see on YouTube. Like that's a great one, because that does speak directly, like it's a contrary view to so much of the content that's out there. And so there's potential there for that idea of your goal is not to get rich quick and build the most successful business.
I think in the end, you're always hunting a feeling, right? You don't hunt the money, right? You don't hunt the building the business. You hunt the feeling of having built a successful business, whatever success means for you, right? The feeling of having the money in the bank so you can feel secure, which you can now, right? You can feel as secure as with like 10 more million in the bank account right now, right? There's nothing you need from the outside, because a feeling is something you develop by your thoughts, right? Internally in your body, and you can feel the most secure person on earth right now. But it doesn't feel like it, because usually we have to build the outside world first in order to feel the same in the inside. Right? But there's a short path to this, right? The short path my brother takes, for example, he's more of the spirituality, right? He had the business path, the health, the fitness. He looked like a supermodel, like with 8 packs on his body, right? But afterwards he got into spirituality, and actually he's taking a short path, right? Trying to build something in the outside to feel the inside. He's doing the short path, which is also a great direction to look into. So just wanted to mention that one.
Interesting. So a lot of what you've mentioned is around either finding a mentor who is ahead of you by some amount of years, or has some amount of experience that you don't have yet, or finding other businesses that you can model after. And I'm wondering what advice you would give to people, to founders who are looking for who that mentor is, or building their board. And how do you both figure out who you need as a mentor, and then also enlist their help, right? Do you find that people have the time and bandwidth and inclination to help you, or do you have to search a little bit to find that right fit?
So the question I got is like, how to pick the right mentor, where to find this mentor, and in the end, how to make use of this mentor as well, right?
Yeah.
And I think the first one is probably the most important one, because how to pick the right mentor matters even more, I think, because if you so the cool thing about the right mentor is they can show you out of experience a path that is worth taking and show you that this one you're approaching might not be the best one because they can give you a little bit context about it, like where it might lead. Might be different for you, right? But that's a good thing because they have the outside perspective, they have more experience. And that's why I think the most important part about a mentor is that you have to choose somebody who has already achieved what you're aiming for, right? That has already achieved what you are aiming for in this specific case, which means that you don't talk to your bank consultant, right, and ask him whether he is could be your financial mentor because they don't have your best interest in the heart, right? They have different goals. It's not aligned, right? They try to earn money by selling you stuff, and they're the best bank people in the world. I love them as well. But they have different goals than you might have, right? Your goal might be financial freedom, and I think most people working in the banking system not working on your financial freedom, for example. That's something you have to do as well. So a better way for this one would to talk to somebody who is already financially free and not by accident, but has done something that you can learn from and might reproduce in order to get there in shorter amount of time, right? And it's the same for health, right? You wouldn't ask, I don't know, the millionaire in your family, right, who has like 10 divorced marriages, ask for advice how to have a more loving relationship with your wife, right? Wouldn't make sense. So always try to pick a mentor in a specific niche, right? Pick a mentor for a specific area of like your wheel of life, right? If it's finances, love and relations, health, whatever it is, and only leverage that mentor for this one and maybe ignore the rest, right? Find another mentor for this one. And then learn from it. And don't ask him, how should I do this specifically? And how is the perfect roadmap in order to build A, B, C, D, E, right? What I want to do. And maybe ask more about how did you do this? How did you approach this? What did work for you? What didn't work for you, right? I think I should do this one. What's your broader view on like that area, right? So always try to learn from their experiences because in the end, it's your job, right? It's not their job to point you somewhere and say, this is what you want to do, this is what you should do. If you have a mentor like that, that's probably more like an advisor. And then you have to make sure that you pick the right advisor as well. A mentor is more somebody who has done what you're trying to achieve, that you can interview basically, and then learn from their failures and successes and try to like remodel some of the things and try to copy some of the things they did. And how to find them, I think that's pretty individual. I found my first mentor actually. Oh, that's another story. I'll tell you later. Okay. So that's a cool story as well. I found him. Christian is his name. Christian Ehl. He is my first mentor and still is, right? One of my mentors. And he actually was a friend, like not a close one, but like friends and family, right? From my mother, right? So her age. And he actually, I actually approached him because he had an agency that seemed to work, right? So lots of people, 50 people, something like that. And I did not have to do a lot with him at that time, but I approached him and asked him whether he can help me with the problem, right? And then he came and he consulted me on something which actually led to the mentorship in the end. But there are other mentors you can just pick on LinkedIn, right? And just ask for help, right? Maybe don't ask Warren Buffett about financial advice. He might be like some steps ahead of you, right? He don't do your personal tax reports. But if you pick somebody who is maybe one step or two steps in front of you, then they actually, and you ask for help, right? Not for a lifelong mentorship and marry you, then that's something they actually might be interested in because people tend to love to help other people as well because it makes them feel good as well. But you have to put in the work and you have to show them that you put in the work and make the progress so their time is well spent as well, right? And the last one was about like how to pick the right mentor, where to find a mentor, conferences, right? Speakers, approaching them if they already proved that they built something what you're aiming for. And the third one is more, I think that's basically it, right? That's the essence. Yeah, let's stick with that.
That's perfect. I think that also speaks to why you're creating these videos and why you're making this content and have this YouTube channel. So I wonder if you could just speak a little bit about that and what you hope to do here, the things that you are hoping to share, and what you're hoping people can get out of your experience and what you're doing here.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for that question. That's a really lovely one. I love it. I can actually feel that this one is a good one, because I think like doing something for yourself is a great thing, right? But actually, most of my pleasure comes from seeing other people succeed and actually have this feeling that you made an impact there and they developed to like another role or found like the purpose or everything, right? And if you have this feeling you could play a little role, like a tiny role on their path as well, that's something that I'm really grateful for. That's something that actually makes a huge difference in my company. That's basically why I do this company, right? So I always wanted to build a company people love to work in, which includes myself. So I would love to work in this company and other people should love to work there as well, which in the end creates better results. But it was about building this company. And I think for me, the next step is like, I feel this company is not over yet, right? So we have like huge goals and approaching them. But I feel like now is the time where and the first time in my life, I can spend a little bit of time, right? Giving back. And I think that's something I really enjoy and I would love to do during the next years, because I actually tried hard to find people to learn from in the beginning that already had done what I'm trying to achieve, because the knowledge and the internet is not publicly available and it's completely different in this time, this world, right? With YouTube and all the other mediums, which is great. And I think actually people learn from people and people learn from mirroring other people. And that's one of the great ways to learn, in addition to making like your own experiences. And by documenting some of the steps I did so other people can actually learn from, this is something that provides me a big pleasure and like gets me a big smile on my face when I think of, I don't know, maybe my kids watch this, right? Or other kids love to watch this, or somebody who's building, like there's a girl who just builds her business, right? And she watches something like this and says, oh my God, yeah, that makes so much sense, right? I can actually do this and not do that. Or maybe, oh, I haven't thought about it in this perspective, right? And that's how people think, like, when they are at that stage or at that stage or at that stage, or have done this or maybe failed on this one. And that's something you can only learn from experience. And by sharing this, documenting this experience, I think it's another thing you build that has a lot of value, because most of the people that get successful don't talk about it, because most people envy you, right? And why should you share stuff where people envy you and then makes you feel bad, right? And maybe people stand on your door and asking you for money and stuff like that. Why should they do it, right? So that's why only a few people do this. And I think like what Gary Vaynerchuk, for example, is doing, right? It's incredible, right? He doesn't have to do that, right? Some stuff Alex Hormozy does, for example, he doesn't have to do it, right? But they have a sense of business purpose there as well. But I think that's like the second, the third, the fifth something, because they don't have to like earn more money. They love the game, right? They love the game of earning money, because business is a game in the end, right? And either you love to play it or you don't love it. And money actually is like the score, how you measure this kind of game. But actually, it's more about giving back and documenting, so other people can like build their own businesses, get successful, and maybe outplay them, right? And that's something that's cool, right?
Yeah. And just with the couple minutes we have left, I want to actually go back to the beginning, which is to have you describe why you started your first business. What made you decide you didn't want to work for other people? You wanted to create a workplace where people wanted to work, because I think that also goes a long way towards the people who are looking to you for advice and a model. And you have built a very specific sort of business, and you manage in a very specific way, and you take August off. You do these things because you're at a certain point. But you've built a business that can sustain those things, and that lets you work in that way. And I think your employees also. And so I think that goes back to the beginning of what you set out to do and how you built the business. So with our last few minutes here, just talk about what that what that impetus was, what that first spark for building your business was.
Yeah, that's a really great observation. Thanks for the thought. Yeah, that one makes perfect sense. So I think in the end, at least that's my current perception, it might change in the future. I think like life is just a chain of moments, right? And in every moment you hunt an experience. And in the end, if like more of these amount of experiences are pleasurable, your life feels something wonderful, right? It feels more pleasurable. If the experiences are like really painful, your life is full of pain, right? So everyone, on whatever way, health, finance, family, relations, right? With all those different areas of the wheel of life, try to match the feelings that they are hunting, right? They are on earth because they try to achieve something or want to feel in a certain way. And for me, building the business is just a vehicle. That's, at least that's my perception of it, right? And building this business, for me, is linked to independence and it's linked to freedom because most of the entrepreneurs I know are this type of person, right, that just want to feel free and they could never imagine working for somebody else because they would be the worst employees on earth, right? I would be the worst employee on earth, right? And when I started, I built my first business like doing websites, doing my studies, and I financed my studies with this, right, with the money out of this small business. And then I did this internship at a big car manufacturer. Doing the studies was part of the studies, and I actually realized that people were thinking in their silos, and nobody was working on like the greater good of the whole company. At least that was my perception, right? And I could never work in a company like that, right? I want to make a difference, make it impact, right? Make work, your work is one of, at least for me, it is a big part of your life, and most of the hours a day you are spent working, right? So why not make this time the most pleasurable it could be, right? And for me, it didn't feel like if I would go on that path and work for another company, work for other people, that I could create this kind of life and the feelings that I would love to have, right? That's why I said, okay, I cannot work in this company. I have to build my own company, right? That's the conclusion you get, right? And then I said, if I'm going to build this company, I'm going to build a company other people and myself love to work in, right? And I think in the beginning it was a little bit more egoistic, like I would love to work in, and it evolved around like everybody else. I got so much pleasure out of that. So I said, okay, build a company that people love to work in general. And that formed the culture of this company. And I think this was crucial to its early success because people actually love to work there, right? It might change in the future. I don't know if we fuck some things up, but I think we always have a focus there, and it always people remember how you make them feel, right? And if you actually care about them, they feel it. And that's the case.
That's perfect. I have to run. I don't want to get you half into an cool answer and then have to cut you off. I think that was fantastic. You have a ton to work with here, and then certainly so many more stories that we can do more and get into. But I think this is really compelling and good. So I hope you feel good too.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Of course.
Helping me document the story.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome.
Wonderful. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.